Now we're going to talk about solving quadratics by something called the quadratic formula, which is really this big formula that you just have to memorize. Now the good news is you already know half of it. Remember how we found the vertex, which is the tip of your parabola? The formula for that was the opposite of b over 2a. If you can remember that, you already know half of the quadratic formula. Now the rest of it is really going to introduce you to something else called the discriminant. So I'm going to make this fraction, I'm going to extend it a little bit more. It's going to be plus or minus radical. And then this stuff underneath here is called the discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So b squared minus 4ac. So again, the quadratic formula is nothing more than the vertex and this new guy called the discriminant. So now we're just going to focus on that new guy, the discriminant. So the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, it could be one of three things. It could be positive, bigger than 0. It could be equal to 0. Or it could be less than 0, in other words, negative. Now, if it's bigger than 0, you're going to have two answers. In other words, your parabola is going to cross that x-axis twice. If it happens to equal 0, this is where it gets a little bit strange. You're going to have exactly one answer. In other words, your parabola is going to tap that x-axis. And if it's negative, remember, the square root, all of this stuff is going to be underneath this square root. We're not allowed to take the square root of a negative number, so this is going to have 0 solutions. So right now, we're not going to concentrate on the entire formula. We're just going to concentrate on this discriminant. So I'm going to find this discriminant, and then I'm going to determine how many answers my equation is going to have. Okay, so if I wanted to solve this at equal to 0, I'm going to do b squared minus 4ac. So b is negative 7 squared. That's going to be 49 minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 1. The worst part is just being able to compute this. I recommend multiplying these first. So negative 4 times 3 times negative 1 is positive 12. So it's going to be 49 plus 12, which equals 61. So the discriminant is 61, which is positive, which means I have two solutions. Okay, now I'm going to repeat the same process here. B squared minus 4ac. So b squared, that's going to be 4 minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 3. Multiply all these guys together. So that gives me negative 48. And then just combine it with that 4 from the beginning. So that's going to give me negative 44. So the discriminant is negative 44 because it's negative. That means I have no solution, at least no real solution. Same thing here. If I take a look at this, b squared, that's going to be a positive 64 minus 4 times a, which is 1, not x, 1, and c, which is 16. So if I multiply these guys together, that gives me 64. So I have 64 minus 64, which happens to equal 0. So the discriminant is 0, but that doesn't mean I have no solution. That actually means I have one real solution. Okay. All right, one more example. B squared, so that's 4 minus 4 times a times c. Okay, multiply those guys together, that's negative 56. So my discriminant is negative 52. That's the discriminant. What does that tell me? That tells me because it's negative, I have no solution. Okay, so really it's just memorizing these formulas. All right, at this point, why don't you guys take a look at these problems, pause the video, find those discriminants, and then figure out how many solutions you should have. And then unpause it when you're done. Okay. All right. So if I take a look at problem number 1a, okay, so once again, b squared minus 4ac, so that's going to be 4 minus 4 times 3 times c, 5. So multiply these, that's negative 60. 4 minus 60 is negative 56, which means negative, I have no real solution, 0 real solution. Okay. Let's take a look at example 1b. Pretty much the same process, again, just getting really comfortable with that b squared minus 4ac discriminant. So b squared, that's 36 minus 4 times a, which is just that number 3, times c, which is that number 3. If I multiply that, that's negative 36. So 36 minus 36 equals 0, which means I have one solution, not 0. Okay. take a look at problem 1e. So 1e, once again, just going over that b squared minus 4ac over and over and over again. Okay, so b squared is negative 5 squared, which is positive 25 minus 4 times a times c. If I multiply those together, if I can survive that, again, I have a calculator to help me out. Okay, you will have no solution because it's negative. Let's take a look at how you guys did it on 1f. If I take a look at 1f, once again, b squared minus 4 times a is 3, c, which is 2. Multiply these guys together, so that's what, negative 24. Okay, again, you guys will have a calculator, so don't worry about the arithmetic so much. That's negative, which means you have no solution. Take a look at 1h. And I know this is going by pretty fast, but it is just checking your work. So b squared, so that's going to be a positive 64 minus 4 times a times c. I would always do that tail end multiplication first, so that's what, negative 128. So that gives me negative 64. Once again, that's negative, which means I have 0 solutions. And then finally, let's take a look at how you guys did on 1i, b squared minus 4ac. So get real comfortable with this. This is actually the worst part of the quadratic formula. The first part you guys are already comfortable with. So that's going to be 36. And c is 1. So if I multiply all that, that's negative 16. Okay, so that's 20 is my discriminant, which means it's positive. I have 2 solutions.